Shorty was lying back and is dressed only in a white t-shirt, and an incision has been made with a sharp instrument around the base of the penis and the scrotum, testicles, and skin surrounding the penis have been removed. Also found near the body was a fresh banana peel and 2 Schlitz beers.
I didn't even pay, but somehow I hit it. When they talked about it at the trial, they said she did a perfect shot 2 inches above the right ear. He fell to the ground, and one of his feet went on the side where the back wheel was.
Then she gets in the car and runs over it. When she went back to break them all out, Warren, you've been calling me a whore and all this kind of stuff and saying I've been running around on you. Well, here's the trophy for you. That's what that was about.
Welcome back to the Coroner's Report. I'm Steve Navoychek, and I was the coroner of 2 of the largest counties in Arkansas, as well as serving a time as the director of the state crime lab. While I'm not chasing my dog Butter through the Ouachita Mountains in the woods of Arkansas, I like to review old cases with my partner Tracy Carrington. This case was sent to us by the investigating officer from the Arkansas State Police, Arkansas State Trooper David Hendershott. He never forgot this case, and he never forgot Ruth Sumlin.
Well, Steve, sometimes good girls take a bad turn.
Oh yeah, she did. She made a left turn that sent her straight to prison. In our last episode, we took you through the wild jailbreak and police chase that left 2 men injured with head and neck wounds. 4 of the 5 escapees were captured, and then a man out hunting in the woods with his son made a gruesome discovery.
The body of Shorty Cooper was found the next morning by Robert Shaw and his son. They'd been out deer hunting early that morning, and that's when they found the body of J.Y. Shorty Cooper.
Me and my boy Robert Jr. were deer hunting just down the logging road from where we discovered the body. We had started out about 10 or 10:15 in the morning, and as I made the turn, I saw the body of a black man laying on the logging road to my left. I then stopped and backed up a few feet where I could see him more clear, and I blowed the horn 2 or 3 times, but he did not move. I then got out of my vehicle, walked, and saw that he was dead. I went back to my vehicle and called the police on my CB radio. We came in on the same road that morning to go deer hunting, but it was well before daylight, and I didn't see anything. However, the body could have been there at the time. I simply could not see it because of the curves and the darkness.
Cooper appeared to have a small caliber bullet hole in the right temple and had been castrated. The scene of the crime was documented by investigator Hendershott. It read,
Shorty was lying on his back. He was dressed only in a white t-shirt and brown nylon socks. The body was nude from the waist down, and an incision had been made with a sharp object around the base of his penis and the scrotum, testicles, and skin surrounding the penis had been removed. There was a quantity of light green facial tissues containing dark brown stains on the ground next to the right knee, against the right foot. And then there was a small black and tan puppy, about 8 weeks old, laying next to the body. And there was a small pile of light blue tissues containing a used red prophylactic wadded up and lying in the middle of the road. Also found near the body was a fresh banana peel and 2 Schlitz beers.
I had questions after reading this.
I'm sure you did.
It's the banana peels and the Schlitz beers.
I guess you work up a thirst when you're killing. I don't know, Steve.
The bananas, the reason I got the bananas is because they were fresh. They hadn't even turned dark. So apparently Ruth and them had ate them, and I thought maybe I could get some kind of evidence off of them. When you go to a crime scene like that and you ain't got no suspects and you don't know what the hell's going on, you just take everything that's there.
I wanted to know why she might have castrated that man and what she did with the bits. So when in doubt, I asked David Hendershott.
When she went back to break them all out, Warren, you've been calling me a whore and all this kind of stuff and saying I've been running around on you. Well, here's the trophy for you. That's what that was about. But I know what happened to him, I think. Threw him out and a little dog ate him. Because we found a little dog, but I didn't want to kill him and cut him open.
Police realized quickly the dead man was the owner of the car Ruth had used in the jailbreak the night before. Now remember, Ruth and Warren had been arrested after a wild night and were being held in the Fordyce jail, so after visiting the murder scene, lead investigator David Hendershott headed to the city jail to interview Ruth and Warren.
I get a call. I just got through working the crime scene, the break-in and the homicide out there at the garbage dump. When I get over at Fordyce jail, it's just a little tiny jail. When I walk in to interview Ruth and Warren, Ruth is sitting in the main room in there, not even in jail, on a stool, drinking a Coke and talking to the chief. And Warren is screaming. He's in the one cell. He's screaming at the top of his head, her to shut up and calling her a bitch and all this kind of stuff. And so I walk in and I need to talk to Ruth. Well, every time I'd ask her something, he'd back there screaming and raising hell and all this. And I can't even carry on the conversation. I said, can't anybody do anything of it with him? Ain't you got someplace you can put him? And he said, well, he's in our only cell. So we went back there and he climbed up about halfway up the bars and was screaming, I'm going to kill all you son of a bitch. I'm going to shoot that bitch in the head and all this kind of stuff. I said, Chief, can I use your office to interview him? He said, yeah. But he says, he's crazier than hell. And I said, I've been called the same thing. Open the door. So they unlocked the door, and I went in. And I took Mr. Warren Sumlin into the chief's office in there and shut the door, and I proceeded to give him his rights. And when I gave him his rights, he decided he wanted to get mean and assault, and he didn't want to cooperate.
Hendershott tried to get a statement from both of them that day, but both Ruth and Warren were pretty tight-lipped. Hendershott knew that Warren was in charge. Even today, Ruth says Warren controlled her, and had it not been for their meeting, she would have never been involved in this.
I think he was mean as a road lizard. I've been in law enforcement for a long time, worked organized crime and major case unit and all this kind of stuff. I've worked the Dixie Mafia. I've worked all these bullshit badasses. And these strutting peacocks out here that crow the most and fluff up the most and do the most, they start crying and wanting their mama. Now, that guy that's sitting over in the corner and he's keeping his mouth shut and he's not saying nothing, you better watch him. He'll hurt you. All these badasses like Warren, if he's dealing with a woman, it's 99% bullshit because he knows he can't back it up, so he's got to scream and holler and act like a fucking fool and all this kind of stuff.
It wasn't long before Sumlin admitted that she had killed Shorty Cooper and also admitted to shooting Thurman Moore Jr.
Now, by Sunday, Ruth confessed to most of the crimes.
When I went in there to interview her, I've interviewed a bunch of people. I thought, well, I'm going to have to crank on this one. I'll be here for a while. I sat down and, man, she just opened up and just told me everything from A to Z. The only thing that Ruth would not admit to, she admitted to the jailbreak. She admitted to having sex with the guy who stole his car and all this kind of stuff. She admitted to shooting him in the head and running over him. She would not admit to castrating him. But when I arrested her, she had a knife in her purse with blood and pubic hair on it.
Ruth and Warren Sumlin were charged with capital murder, escape, and aggravated robbery, and then held without bond.
Both were assigned public defenders, and the judge ruled the trials would be held separately.
That makes sense, considering Warren didn't kill anyone. I mean, at least in Arkansas.
The prosecuting attorney, Mike Kynard, was a friend of mine, and he wasn't playing. He told the court he was seeking the death penalty because Cooper was murdered during the commission of another felony, a robbery, or the jailbreak.
The story was big news in the region.
The state was tasked with proving that Mrs. Ruth Sumlin, 23, killed J.Y. Shorty Cooper, 41, of Magnolia, to steal his car and to use the vehicle as the getaway car when she freed her husband from the jail in Magnolia on November the 24th.
Two of the three other escapees were also back in custody. Jackie Moore, the fourth escapee, was comfortable in Michigan, hiding out at his mother's house by the time the others were arraigned.
It amazes me that he traveled from Magnolia, Arkansas to Little Rock, which is about 140 miles, to hop on a plane and then hide out in Muskegon, Michigan.
Eventually, the long arm of the law reached out over 1,000 miles and grabbed him.
Byron Thomason was appointed to represent Ruth at trial. He spoke to the press, saying he couldn't understand this case.
Thomason said Ruth was the only person in her 14-child family that ever attended college. But after meeting Warren Sumlin, she dropped out of Southern Arkansas University when she was 9 hours shy of a degree.
Thomason felt certain Ruth did not sexually mutilate Cooper's body.
In her testimony at the trial, she largely repudiated this statement. She admitted having sexual intercourse with Shorty, and they had seen each other on other occasions, but she denied she killed him.
Ruth said Shorty was in the back seat of the car, drunk, when they all got in the car after the jailbreak. Ruth testified that Warren killed Shorty Cooper later, or at least he took Cooper down a road and she heard a shot and assumed Warren had killed Cooper. She said Warren killed Cooper because he knew Cooper had disrespected her.
Ruth denied mutilating Cooper's sexual organs, suggesting that the car had backed over his body, or perhaps Warren Sumlin had done it. There was evidence the car ran over Cooper's legs.
The medical examiner testified that the cause of Cooper's death wasn't due to the castration, but from the .22 caliber bullet fired into his skull. No alcohol was found in his bloodstream, so he wasn't drunk. The scrotum area had been cut with an edged instrument, and the scrotum and its contents were absent.
Cooper was still alive when he was castrated, but most likely unconscious. Can you imagine?
No, I can't. And it's interesting to me that she has still never admitted to the castration. Everything else she admits to, but even today, she refuses to admit to the castration. Ruth's testimony contradicted a tape-recorded voluntary statement, which was entered as evidence. In the statement, she told authorities that she had shot Cooper to obtain his car to help her husband escape from jail.
In her recorded statement prior to the trial, Ruth went into details about what happened that night. Ruth had planned several different methods of obtaining Cooper's car, including meeting him somewhere and leaving him, taking him to a motel room and locking him in, and, as a last resort, using a gun to shoot him. Ruth said that Warren had told her to use the best possible way to obtain the car.
Ruth told police in her recorded statement that they had had sex and that Cooper noticed she was nervous. They got out of the car, and when he came around to her side of the vehicle, she shot at him. He fell to the ground, and she called to him, but he didn't answer. She said then she started the car, but apparently ran over his leg.
At trial, Ruth Sumlin said Shorty Cooper was shot by her husband after the jailbreak, and that Shorty had been drunk in the back seat of the car. Question about the mutilation of Cooper's body, Ruth Sumlin said she did not see her husband mutilate the body. When asked by defense attorney Brian Thomason why she made the taped statement, she said her husband told her to take the rap because Warren could not afford any more criminal charges. Ruth testified that her husband told her she would only get a couple of years in prison if she took the blame. She told the jury she was sorry Shorty Cooper was dead.
Both Thurman and Jackie Moore contradicted Ruth's story about Shorty Cooper being in the car at the time of the jailbreak. Ruth totally changed her story at trial.
All for the love of a man.
Well, that's a hell of a reason.
No doubt.
In court, Mike Kynard, the prosecuting attorney, read from the letter Ruth had sent her mother, admitting she had shot Shorty Cooper. Kynard also reminded the jury that Cooper's wallet, gun, and the knife she used to castrate him were all found in her purse at the time of the arrest.
That's just damning evidence.
In fact, the crime lab reported type O blood was on the blade of that red-handled knife when it was found in Ruth's purse after arrest. Of course, this was again before DNA, so blood typing was all we had in our bag of forensics.
Ruth was found guilty of capital felony murder by a jury of 8 women and 4 men in the slaying of J.Y. Shorty Cooper of Magnolia.
Ruth was sentenced to life in prison. Mike Kynard, the prosecuting attorney, said he was extremely gratified by the jury's verdict. He said the jury was very sincere and appeared even anguished at times making this verdict.
Ruth told the press she had lied to her defense attorney for 4 months from the time of her arraignment until trial about whether or not she shot Shorty.
Brian Thomason, her defense attorney, told the jury that Ruth was a fool and that he begged her not to be a fool. Finally, right before the trial, she told her attorney that she did not kill Shorty. Thompson was quoted in the paper saying he had a gut feeling that Ruth was innocent and that Warren had committed the crime.
Warren Sumlin was tried separately, and his trial was delayed due to the publicity surrounding Ruth's trial and the conviction.
Surprisingly, Ruth was set to testify at her husband's trial, and well, her story changed again.
Ruth testified under oath at Warren's trial that she and Shorty had sex, and he argued with her, so she grabbed a pistol and shot him.
The prosecuting attorney, Mike Kynard, even had her read back the testimony she gave at her own trial during her husband's trial, where she clearly stated that her husband had ordered her to kill Cooper.
Ruth said on the stand that she may have lied at her own murder trial to save herself, but that she was telling the truth when she now admitted to killing Shorty Cooper.
The prosecutor told the jury they should consider Sumlin's 2 previous convictions for crimes involving violence and other aggravating circumstances when they were deliberating. It only took the jury about 2 hours to decide.
41-year-old Warren Sumlin was found guilty of capital murder for his alleged role in the shooting death of J.Y. Shorty Cooper, 41, of Magnolia. The jury of 7 women and 5 men recommended Sumlin be sentenced to death.
So Ruth was sentenced to life, and Warren was sentenced to death by electrocution.
He would never see Arkansas's version of Old Sparky. In 1981, the Supreme Court of Arkansas reduced Warren Sumlin's sentence from death to life in prison without parole. That was the same sentence Ruth received. David Hendershott explains.
That case made the Supreme Court. There's a Supreme Court judgment out about it because when it went to trial, the jury gave Warren Sumlin the death penalty, and they gave Ruth life without parole. But she's the one that actually did the killing. And so the Supreme Court came down with a decision, and it's still on the books. You can't give the shooter life and then give the people with him death.
The Supreme Court said the Columbia Circuit Court may have erred in the sentencing phase by requiring Miss Sumlin to testify about conversations that were privileged and confidential communications between husband and wife. The court said another factor in its decision was that Miss Sumlin had received a life sentence without parole for the same crime.
She was just 9 hours shy of a college degree in psychology. It is just hard to understand why Ruth went down this path.
Well, there are clues why Ruth ended up with Warren in some of the press coverage after his death penalty case was overturned. He wasn't really just a dumb criminal.
Warren Sumlin writes poetry to legal notes and reads everything from the Bible to Penthouse magazine. He remembers Thanksgiving in 1977 when a Columbia County man was murdered and the next 3 Thanksgivings on death row.
In prison, Warren found his calling, and it was a bit surprising.
He went to go into the penitentiary, and I think he hooked up with the Muslims in the prison and went to culinary school.
Warren Sumlin spoke to reporters 5 years after his trial, after his sentence was commuted to life in prison.
I was more apprehensive than scared while on death row. The new governor promised to speed up the execution process, and all the inmates panicked. It was instant. It was right there on you, and it was quick. You didn't know it was coming. Then all of a sudden, you hadn't got a chance. It just made it all much more real to you. I came here with the understanding that I was going to be put to death, and every day that was a constant fight. When you're on death row, you finally realize you're sentenced for one thing, to be killed. That's very hard for lots of people to deal with. I realized that something was bigger than me because I was trapped, in a little old cell. I'm by myself, and I'm sentenced to die. So what can I do? I prayed. I believe that's why I'm off the road, because of my prayers. Prison has changed me. I have a tendency to concentrate more. I do a lot of meditating. I can't possibly be the same person I was. I don't make any quick judgments. I miss my wife, son, and 2 granddaughters. I would like to share with them the prison's Thanksgiving dinner of barbecued ribs and turkey and dressing.
Warren had been married before and did have 1 son, but it's not clear in that newspaper article which wife he missed. Did he miss Ruth or did he miss his first wife? Either way, Warren Sumlin never got to have another family Thanksgiving dinner. He died in prison August 9th, 1999.
Meanwhile, Ruth Sumlin finished her degree in prison through correspondence courses. By 1993, she was part of a prison quintet known as the Prodigal Daughters. The group traveled the state singing gospel music and telling their stories as a warning to other women.
As for the rest of the escapees, Thurman Moore, Donald Biddle, and Troy Lee Biggs were all sentenced to 5 years in prison. Jackie Moore was charged with first-degree escape and unlawful flight to avoid prosecution.
It took a few months to track down Jackie Moore, but as luck would have it, lead investigator Bulldog David Hendershott was there.
Just as a coincidence, I just happened to be at the sheriff's office late one night, and I stopped in there to get a cup of coffee with the jailer, and I was sitting in there, and the phone rang, and I answered it, and they said, "This is police department, and we have a car stop with 6 black males in it, and one of these black males gives a phony ID and everything, but he is from Magnolia, or been in Magnolia, Arkansas." Said, "Yeah, he wanted to escape. He's the one who had the money." And I said, "You mean to tell me he is alive?" And they said, "Yeah, I put his ass in jail. I'll be up there 2 days to pick him up." So we went up and we arrested him and we extradited him, brought him back to Magnolia, and I got him in the sheriff's office in there. Now, this is a good 4, 5, 6 months after the case happened. And I'm saying, "Now tell me, you said that they tried to shoot you and you ran off and they shot your buddy over there and then you hit the woods and with Warren chasing you." I said, "They tell me they shot you." And he said, "No, I didn't get shot. And they stuck the gun right up the back of your neck and pulled the trigger and it went pop." And he said, "No, I didn't get shot." And he said, "But you know what? When I got off the plane up there in Chicago, I had the damnedest headache, and I put my hand back there, and there was some blood on my hand." I said, "Load your ass in my police car." are. I took him down to the emergency room. They x-rayed him, and right now today, he has got a 22 RG bullet in the base of his brain.
Meanwhile, Ruth's been in prison for so long that she kind of has seniority.
Right now, I'm number 4 from the top, and I'm going on 47 years. Quite a few of the people I've known for years in here, they've passed already. They didn't make it.
In 2008, the Arkansas Parole Board recommended commuting Ruth's life sentence to 36 years in prison. Ruth wrote that she would like to live her remaining years free and said she was no threat to society, that she wanted to be released to help her ill family members, and she said that she was a changed person and could be a great asset outside prison. The Columbia County Sheriff and the prosecutor both opposed clemency. Arkansas Governor Mike Beebe denied clemency.
In 2012, she applied to have her life without parole sentence commuted, but her request was denied by the parole board. In 2022, she once again tried for clemency when the parole board denied her application.
When I first came to prison, it was we could go every year. Then they said come every 2 years, and they said come every 4 years, and they said it to come every 6 years. And a few years ago, they said come for life without parole only, come every 8 years.
She still has hope that she will live to see freedom.
I still expect to get out because it says life without parole. And some people, when they hear that, they automatically think, well, you can't get out. It means, the statute means that I can't parole out of prison. When I go, I'll just be what they call flat.
Today, Ruth Sumlin is 70 years old and is confined at the McPherson unit in Newport, Arkansas. Ironically, after her trial, when she was taken from the Columbia County Jail to the women's unit in Newport, and it wasn't her first trip.
I had actually come to the prison about a year before from my criminology class, and I had visited the women's unit, which was a new unit at that time, so I already knew the layout of it, so I knew where I was going, and they took me on a Saturday of all times to get me out of that jailhouse, away from my husband. It was a good thing, actually.
Ruth quickly adjusted to her new life in prison. She clung to her faith.
I was blessed. The Lord has taken very good care of me ever since I've been in the penitentiary from day one. He's given me favor every time with the administration, with the warden, and that warden, Miss Carruthers. She took a liking to me. I think she's the one that may have actually got it where I could go down there and visit him, which actually wasn't a good thing.
There was something else she clung to, and that was Warren Sumlin.
I think that's what surprised me most. Not only did she stay in touch with her husband, but early in her sentence, she was even allowed to go visit Warren in prison.
Warren was still on me. They finally sent him on. They put him on death row, and he was saying, get some visits, and he would have me to write to folks, and he kept writing them, and they agreed. They allowed me to travel down there twice a month to come and visit 4 hours each month, even though he was on death row, because at first they said, no, we can't pull him through the population as a death row person to visit. But they did. Some of it had to do with the warden. And I visited him, I want to say 3 years before they cut out visitations like that.
Ruth's religion played a huge part in remaining married to and continuing to use Warren's surname.
I'm his husband's name. I won't use it out there.
She continued to stay in touch with Warren throughout the remainder of his life, and she did talk about how he was still manipulating and playing the system.
Everybody always thought he was so nice when they met him. That's just the way he was, and it wasn't that I was attracted to him or he was especially good looking and all that to me. It's just, I don't know. I'm not sure what it was.
A charmer and a con.
I got the impression that he was spoiled, that his mother had spoiled him all his life. He was addicted, and he'd tell me how he threw his mother real bad and cussed her out and threatened her until she got in it. And he'd make her drive him to the dope house, and he'd go in there and get his hit. When he come back out, he'd be all charming and happy.
Ruth is considered a minimum risk to reoffend. She is remorseful about the murder and about the jailbreak.
But, I felt bad, too. I really felt this was an awful thing I did. I did not have the thoughts or the whatever it took. I just didn't have it to do anything different.
Ruth has had a long time to think about what she did and why she did it. She even had time to write a book, but it's never been published.
My psychiatrist friend, he said, maybe you were just supposed to do it to get it out of your system. And I think it helps because I've never gone back and reread it. I guess just writing it shows how I became what I was and what I did.
In the police files, in court, and even today, Ruth has always consistently denied that she castrated her murder victim. But David Hendershott thinks he knows why.
Warren didn't tell her to castrate this guy. And that's the one thing she would not admit to, but I knew she did it. And I found out why from talking to the other inmates. It's because he berated her so much over being in love with this John. She wanted a trophy to show Warren to prove that she did not love him. She didn't know what she was doing. She never castrated anybody any before. What was found, red handle naft's the one that had the pubic hair and the blood on it. It was in her purse whenever they arrested her. It looked like one of these cheap switchblades you buy, but I don't think it was a switchblade. I think it was a folding bladed knife. It was probably 4 inches long closed. It all added up. She was the only one there.
To this day, even the lead investigator, David Hendershott, wonders how Ruth fell for Warren.
She had it made. She was intelligent, making good grades. And then here comes this guy, this hard case pimp out of L.A., and just turned her upside down. I never did find out what attracted her to him. I didn't think he was that attractive.
Today, Ruth is a model inmate. It's been 48 years since she's been in any kind of trouble, but she's certain she will not die in prison.
This concludes the final part of Ruth Sumlin, For the Love of a Good Woman, on the Coroner's Report. If you like our content, please remember to like and subscribe. And if you have questions, please reach out to us on our website at thecoronersreport.net or on any of our social media platforms. A special thanks goes to Ruth Sumlin and David Hendershott for sharing their memories. Also thanks to voice actors Chris Schaefer, Alan Prather, and Savvy Valentine. Copyright 2025 Aussie Grove Media Group, LLC.